Most disturbing discovery wasn't about empathy alone. It was about why empaths feel hate from people they've only helped, and why this phenomenon reveals the unconscious shadow dynamics that most people refuse to acknowledge about human relationships. In his work on projection and shadow psychology, Jung documented what I call helper's paradox syndrome, a pattern where highly sensitive individuals would offer genuine assistance and emotional support to others, only to encounter hostility, resentment, or rejection from the very people they'd tried to help. Jung called this pattern disturbing because these empathic individuals triggered what he described as shadow confrontation in those they helped. When empaths offered assistance, they unconsciously forced others to face their own dependency, vulnerability, and unacknowledged emotional needs, creating psychological discomfort that often manifested as hostility toward the helper. What made this discovery so significant to Jung was the predictability. He could forecast that acts of genuine empathic assistance would often trigger defensive reactions, projection, and even hatred from recipients, not because the help was unwanted, but because it activated unconscious shame and wounded pride. Today, I'll reveal Jung's insights about why empaths feel hate from people they've only helped, and why he believed this reaction exposes the shadow dynamics and projection mechanisms that govern most human relationships. The grateful patient who became an enemy. Jung's breakthrough came through a clinical case that shattered his assumptions about human gratitude. A patient had been consistently supported by a close friend during months of crisis, emotional support, practical help, unwavering presence during their darkest period. Then, the unthinkable happened. The patient began expressing intense irritation toward this helpful friend, complaints that the friend was too much, overwhelming, making me feel weak. Despite receiving only kindness, the patient started avoiding and eventually rejecting their most supportive relationship. Jung discovered something chilling through analysis. The patient's hostility wasn't about the friend's actions, but what the friend's help revealed about their own psychological state. The helper had become a mirror, reflecting their dependency, triggering shame so profound it transformed into rage against the mirror itself. Jung documented, the individual could not tolerate being witnessed in vulnerability. The helper's presence created unbearable awareness of neediness, forcing a choice between integration or projection. The psyche chose projection. What disturbed Jung most was discovering this wasn't isolated but universal, a fundamental pattern where empathic assistance activates what he called dependency terror in recipients. The friend's caring presence forced confrontation with aspects of self they'd rather deny. This case revealed that empaths become unwitting triggers for psychological material. Others desperately want to keep unconscious, making them targets for shadow projection and defensive hostility. The shadow mirror psychology. Jung uncovered the mechanism behind why genuine help triggers hatred. Empaths function as psychological mirrors that reflect recipients' disowned emotional reality, creating intolerable self-awareness that gets projected outward. Jung identified the three-stage mirror process. Stage 1, unconscious reflection. When empaths offer assistance, they naturally attune to others' emotional states and needs. This attunement creates what Jung called involuntary mirroring. The empath's responses reflect back the recipient's authentic emotional condition, bypassing their protective persona. Recipients sense being seen through in ways that feel exposing and uncomfortable, even when the empath has no intention of judgment or analysis. Stage 2, shadow activation. Jung discovered that this mirroring activates what he called disowned dependency material in recipients. Their unconscious shame about needing help, feeling vulnerable, or appearing incomplete suddenly becomes visible through the empath's caring response. Rather than integrating this normal human condition, the psyche experiences it as threatening to their self-image and attempts to eliminate the source of awareness. The empathic mirror. Stage 3. Projection defense. Jung observed that recipients often unconsciously attribute negative qualities to empaths to justify rejecting them. The helper becomes manipulative, condescending, or trying to make themselves feel superior. Projections that protect against acknowledging their own vulnerability. Jung realized this mechanism explains why empaths feel blindsided by hostility after genuine attempts to help. The hatred isn't about their actions, but about the unconscious psychological material their presence activates in others. This mirror destruction response serves to restore the recipient's psychological equilibrium by eliminating the uncomfortable reflection of their authentic emotional needs. The superiority illusion that destroys relationships. Jung identified a deeper dynamic that makes empathic help feel threatening, what he called unconscious hierarchy creation, where assistance automatically implies superiority and inferiority roles, even when neither party intends this. Jung discovered that the simple act of offering help creates what recipients unconsciously perceive as a power imbalance. The helper appears to have resources, insight, or strength that the recipient lacks, triggering what Jung called inferiority wound activation, regardless of the empath's actual intentions. This perceived hierarchy triggers several automatic responses. Pride armor activation. Recipients' egos immediately deploy defenses against feeling diminished by needing help. Jung noted that accepting assistance can unconsciously feel like regression to childhood dependency, triggering what he called dignity preservation mechanisms. These manifest as criticism of the helper's methods, motivations, or character, ways of restoring psychological equality by finding fault with the person offering assistance. Competence threat response. Jung observed that empathic assistance often triggers questioning of recipients' own capabilities. If someone else can see and address their problems, it raises unconscious doubts about their insight and problem-solving abilities. This creates resentment toward empaths for highlighting perceived inadequacies, transforming gratitude into hostility as a way of protecting self-concept. Autonomy violation. Perception. Jung documented that many experience offered help as implicit criticism of their independence. The message received becomes, "I think you can't handle this yourself," rather than, "I care about you." Recipients with strong self-sufficiency conditioning interpret empathic offers as invasive presumptions about their capabilities, triggering hostile reactions designed to reassert autonomy and competence. Jung emphasized these reactions operate largely outside conscious awareness and don't reflect recipients' actual feelings about empaths' character, but rather their own unresolved psychological material around dependency and self-worth. If you felt confused by someone's hostility after you helped them, comment, "They were fighting their own reflection." The 4 faces of helper hatred. Jung catalogued 4 distinct patterns in how people transform empathic assistance into reasons for hostility, each revealing different unconscious psychological conflicts. The pride warrior. These individuals experience any offer of help as an assault on their independence mythology. Jung observed they respond with what he called competence theater, dramatic displays of self-sufficiency designed to reject the implied inadequacy of needing assistance. Pride warriors often escalate to personal attacks on empaths' motivations, claiming helpers are trying to feel important or need to be needed. This projection allows them to maintain their independence fantasy while discrediting the source of uncomfortable awareness. Jung noted these individuals typically carry childhood conditioning where needing help equaled weakness or failure, creating adult hypersensitivity to any suggestion they might benefit from support. The shame transformer. Jung identified people who convert their internal judgment about needing help into external blame toward empaths. They experience what Jung called emotional alchemy, transforming their self-criticism into criticism of helpers. These individuals often accuse empaths of condescension, manipulation, or superiority complexes, projecting onto helpers the very judgments they hold about themselves for needing assistance. Shame transformers frequently become increasingly hostile because they interpret empathic care as highlighting their failures or inadequacies, making the helper feel dangerous to their psychological equilibrium. The guilt reactor. Jung documented individuals who